Good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you happen to be tuning into this from on LinkedIn. Welcome. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. My name's Elias, and today I'm just going to be doing a little behind the scenes about an event that I was producing last weekend, the weekend of June 10th to 11th, 2023. And just to give you a little bit of background, what I was working on that weekend was an event called the Forest City Road Races, the Canada Life Forest City Road Races. Basically, it's a half marathon, 5K and 10K race, along with a fun run for the kids, all raising money for the Thames Valley Children's Centre, also known as TVCC here in London, Ontario. They're a fantastic resource for families with children who need physiotherapy, children with disabilities. They've done wonders for many families, mine included. So it was a fantastic event. The road races raised over $75,000 for the TVCC, which was beautiful. And some of the stories just would move you to tears. It was quite something to be part of. This year, what we did was, instead of just having your typical audiovisual setup in the at the park to announce the start line and the finish line, we decided to go a little bit more on a production side. So here's the project brief that we had. The brief was we needed to create a live production of the Forest City Road Races and broadcast it out to the web and broadcast it around the park. Let's go to the park and take a look at where we would be setting up. So if we zoom in here to Victoria Park here in London, Ontario, here's our main start and finish areas. So in the center of the park here was our main tent and our production tent. So we were set up right around here. Along with that, we would have a start line up here on Central Avenue. And then along this side street, we would have a second start line set up near the VIP tent and the food tent. So here's the challenge. We needed to capture a live feed of each start line, of the finish line, and get the MCs of the event, the local radio personalities. We needed to capture their voices on the live stream as well. Plus, at the main tent, we were also going to have an awards stage. So after the marathons were complete, we needed to have an awards stage at the main tent. So we needed to bring all of this together. Now, how did we do that? Well, let me walk you through the different locations. Or let me walk you through what we did, what our production plan was. So our production folks were based, and I was based out of this main tent for the entire weekend. That's where I was sitting pretty much the entire weekend when we weren't running internet cable, Ethernet cable all over the park, which we were. I'll get to that in a minute. I had a remote production crew up here at the start line. So they were capturing the start footage, and that came back to us via a cellular feed. We actually used a technology called SRT to stream that feed from the start line back to our production tent. We ran internet cable from our main tent over to the VIP tent, where we had a television set up, down into the food tent where all the participants funneled through to refuel. And we also had our cameras stationed down at the finish line. Let me flip over to the video here, and I can show you kind of what this looked like. So at the finish line, we had just a general shot of the finish. And then as folks came in, we were capturing their time we had the chip time folks. So they have these little mats that are on the ground that are scanning and capturing when people come across the finish line. So we were getting a live feed from one of their computers and displaying this in the VIP tent. Now here's the magic of the VIP tent. In the VIP, or not the VIP tent, the food tent. In the food tent, we would show a time delay feed. It was about 30 to 45 seconds. That way, each participant, when they passed through the food tent, they could watch themselves on the instant replay come in, and they could see their time show up on the display. So we have a runner come in, and the race display will update in a moment. I'll actually skip ahead a little bit here. So yeah, as the participants came in, this feed updated from the chip time folks. And so participants were able to see themselves come across the finish line when they were passing through the food tent. So that was really, really cool. People loved that. And then folks in the VIP tent, they got to watch the participants come across the finish line. And earlier on in the race, at each start line, we also broadcast each start and finish. So again, up here, so we got a shot of the start line up on Central Ave. And we had a production crew up here. We were going to have 2 camera feeds. We had to cut down to 1 just because the weather just was not cooperating that morning. So this was coming to us over an SRT feed. I'll actually just pause the music for a second here so that you can hear the start line. Let's see.
10 seconds to go, people. I hope you guys have a great day running today. I hope to see you back here in an hour and 30 minutes. And then we're ready to go. Here we go.
So here go the runners. They're off. The race starts at 8 o'clock a.m. And the custom theme plays. So this is something else that's going on here. As the race starts, this theme that you hear in the background, this was custom composed for the race. We created this thanks to an AI music creation tool for the Forest City road races. So we're capturing this start line feed. The folks racing go through start line, and then we cut over, I think in a few moments, over to they funnel through the finish area, through this back fencing here, and then they go all the way through the city. It's a half marathon, so 21.1 kilometers, I think it is. 21.5 kilometers or something like that. It's a long race. So folks in the VIP tent got to watch as this went on. So that was a lot of fun. And of course, we did the same thing for each race start. So the 5K and the half marathon started in the same location. And now, we hit the start of the 5K, and these guys just take off like rockets. Like, look at this start compared to the half marathon. Half marathon, everybody's pacing themselves. 5K, these guys are going. If I skip ahead another 5 minutes, let's see here. Yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah, so we get about 15 minutes later. There we go. So at 8:35, the first race, the 5K started at 8 o'clock, at 8:20 sharp. 8:35, our first runner comes through at 15:46. Just unbelievable. 15 minutes to run 5 kilometers. That's awesome. So we had a camera stationed here at the finish line, and this camera was set up with a hardwired line back to our production tent. So I'll take you through a couple of the areas on Google Earth here. So we had the finish line, but just adjacent to the finish line as well was the medical tent. So we had a medical tent down here along Dufferin Avenue where we had an Ethernet switch set up. So we had the medical tent was set up around the finish line. We had a cable going to the chip time folks, and then we had a cable coming down onto the road where we had the camera set up. That line was run to the food tent, also then to the VIP tent, and then back over to our main tent. And I can show you some photos of the setup. So we actually ended up going through a 300-foot Ethernet cable to go from the main tent over to our VIP tent. We're actually one of the volunteers of the event, Julian, absolute phenomenal guy. Been best friends with him since forever. Super smart. He had the idea of, well, we got to get these cables. We can't cross these paths with these cables. So he actually came up with a tension line between the main tent and this light pole. Then we did sort of the same thing to a tree. And then if I skip ahead a little bit here, then we did the same thing over to the VIP tent. This is just a little bit behind the scenes here. So we ran that over to our VIP, or over to our food tent here on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side of the screen is our VIP tent. So we actually ran an Ethernet line back over to the VIP tent, and that had our live broadcast for folks in the VIP tent to watch. And in both of these tents, we had an Ethernet switch set up. So this is what allowed us to extend our internet line length. So we had a hardwired connection from the main tent over to our food tent, a black Ethernet wire back over to the VIP tent, and then from this food tent, we then ran another wire over to the start line area. And so the start line area, we had our medical tent, and in the corner of the medical tent, we had another switch. This was what was called a power over Ethernet, or PoE switch. And what that let us do was run the audio, video, and power over one cable. So we only had to lay one cable to go to our camera position here at the finish line, and then another cable to go to the chip time trailer, the guys that were capturing all the race times. And then just behind the scenes here, we're mixing all of this together at our production tent, which is just behind the main tent. So the laptop on the left here, this was a laptop that was running H2R graphics, excuse me. It's actually what's running the graphics for this stream right now. H2R graphics. Actually, one of the really cool things with H2R was we were able to set up a list of variables. So all of our race names, in fact, let me see if I have that. We're going to do something live on stream. That's always fun, right? Always fun to see if you can do something just like really quick on stream. FCRR, let me grab the rundown control room. This may work. I make no promises. If I look at the variables. Yeah, so in this list, so we set up, as part of the awards ceremony, we had the name of the race, what rank somebody came in, and the name of the person. So we were going to be displaying these as part of the finish line, as part of the awards ceremony. So that's what Michael was, my tech, Michael, when he wasn't helping me fly Ethernet wires all over the place, that's what he was taking care of. Basically watching the stream, getting the names of the winners, getting them ready in the titler. That was being piped into our production laptop here, and he was responsible for doing the titling. So, okay, back to the overall park setup. Just to give you an idea of how much cable we were laying, I'm going to zoom out here a little bit, and we'll do a slightly overhead shot here, and I'll show you what we had to do. Start line was a special case, but for the internet lines that we were running, if I zoom in, I'll actually zoom in a little bit here. What I'll do here is I will add a path. So we had to go from main tent over to the VIP tent, over to the food tent, down across to the medical tent. I'll make that line nice and visible here. So this path was our internet run, our hardwired Ethernet run. And that total distance to get from the main tent over to the finish line was at least 500 feet. Then We had to go from there and run cables further along to the chip time folks and then also to our camera. We ended up running 750 feet worth of Ethernet internet cable across the park. And that was so that we could get that hardwired line. And just to actually zoom in a little bit more here, just to give you an idea of what of the challenge that we were up against. We'll just go into Street View here. So yeah, this is actually, so yeah, my measurement is actually pretty good here because we terminated because our camera was set up just about parallel with this parking meter. And then if I go over here, the road races, we actually, because they've been celebrating, because they've been around for so long, we actually have a permanent finish line painted on the road. So this is where all of the races finished, which presents a unique challenge. All the races finish at the same spot, but all the races are slightly different lengths. So the 5K race is 5 kilometers, the 10K race is 10 kilometers, and the half marathon is 21 point something kilometers. Now, as it turned out, the 5K and the half marathon started at the exact same location. That worked. But the 10K was a special case. So the 10K actually started on Clarence Street, which if we go up the road here, and so the participants come into the finish chute, and then they come up here into, and then the participants would come up here into the park. They go through here. This was our finish chute, and then the food tent was just through here. So all this stuff was fenced off. So the 10K actually started. If I can get Google Earth to cooperate here, I'm actually going to zoom out, exit Street View for a second. So the 10K race actually started just about here on Clarence Street. So what we had to do was, since we were covering so much distance, this was, if I add another path, just so we can measure here. So we're going to do path, and I'll go from main tent over to the start line. As the crow flies, that is 1,000 feet, or a third of a kilometer. Not doable. We could not get an Ethernet line reliably run over there. One, due to security concerns, and two, just the sheer amount of effort to fly that line would have been too much. So what we did was used mobile hotspots instead. We actually had a self-contained little portable setup with a cellular hotspot, a production laptop, and originally 2 cameras, but we had to go down to 1. On that network, on that self-contained network, all the cameras were mixed together using NDI, and then we sent that back over wirelessly to our main tent via SRT. Actually, we were using the technology called Calaba Cloud. It was awesome. It did exactly what we needed it to. Then that start line had to move over here to Clarence Street to start the 10K run. We also had to start the McDonald's fun run from that location as well. So another lesson that we learned as part of this was, it turns out cellular networks work very different when there's about 500 people using the same in the same location, all using data at the same time. We ran into this with the McDonald's fun run. So if I skip back to the video and we tune into the start of the fun run here, we actually had to suspend this feed for a minute because we were just running short on bandwidth. All the parents were getting ready to stream this out to Facebook Live, and we were losing the connection. So we had to, basically what we did was modified the stream so that so that it was less than real time. So we were getting this feed. This feed was delayed by about, I want to say 30 seconds from real time. Now, my camera operator was positioned one way, and then we found out that all the parents were there. Fortunately, he's very tall and very strong and was able to get the camera airborne. That's something I would actually consider doing different in the future. Is I think I would actually get like a portable boom lift or something just to get the camera up in the air. The more height, the better. Usually we do a lot of our events we do indoors. So outdoors, I'll be honest, is a bit of a challenge. It's a new thing for us. What was funny? Okay, I got to replay this section. This is really cute.
The finish shoot once they're in it.
So here we go. They're discussing behind the scenes. All right, we do on your mark, get set, go. They drop the banner, and the kids are like, okay, the race is starting. We're not waiting for somebody to tell us that the race has started. They just went. So that was a funny, that was a fun little thing. So because all the parents were using their cell phone data at the same time, that impacted our ability to stream. So that was something that we should have tested a little bit more ahead of time, is just see where exactly will our stream fall over. It was, we still made it work. We still got a pretty good picture. We were able to make the most of what we had. And fortunately, the weather held out here. So it was pretty fun. And then all the kids coming through the finish shoot and finishing. That was a ton of fun for all the parents, all the kids, folks in the VIP tent to enjoy. So so we had to get internet all over the place in the park. We were doing it through mobile hotspots, and we were also doing it via hardline internet. And again, at the start lines, because they were moving around, we had portable generators up there as well, just to give us just enough power to power our equipment, and then the massive sound systems that we had up at those start lines. So originally we were going to have 2 cameras down here at the finish line. Again, we had the forecast was not so great. So instead of that, unfortunately, we had to settle for just having 1 camera underneath an awning here. So set up this tent to protect our camera from the elements. This was a pan tilt zoom camera, by the way, so we didn't need to have an operator down here. In the future, I would have an operator at every major spot. We're a little bit short-handed that weekend. And just to give you a little behind the scenes here, this was the shot of this was the TV that we had stationed in the food tent. Again, this was the one that was on the time delay. So as participants came in through the food tent to get nourished, they could see themselves finish. And you can see here one of the switches that we were using to split internet all through the park. And then we caught a little behind the scenes here. So this is me mixing the signal from the start line in. And then we had, for the start of each race, I had a custom theme song that would kick off each race. So we'd hear the air horn, and then boom, there we go. The race has started. Then here we go, back in the food tent. People can see their finish times and themselves crossing the line. Us just doing some adjustments. And again, like I mentioned, at the finish line, or at the award stage, we had the awards being handed out, and then being able to pop up titles. Mike was able to take care of this, pop up titles for the winners, what place they came in, and their names. And we were getting that down from the Chip Time folks down in the south end of the park. And this was all streamed out to YouTube and within the park itself. So what would I change in the future? And what were the key takeaways of this? Well, first thing is just knowing when things are going to break. In terms of your internet connection, in terms of your streaming, you need to have a good idea of what's going to break when. It's a real challenge streaming over cellular connections. They can be fickle, they can be unreliable. We did try using the what's it called? Oh, I'm forgetting words. You can tell it's been it's been a wild couple of days here, and I'm still not fully recovered from what we were doing, so I apologize. we originally tried doing NDI all the way, and we found that that just doesn't work. NDI, network device interface, is awesome for doing live video over a local area network where everything's hardwired and you have complete control over the network. NDI can be very sensitive to any kind of interruptions in the stream. There's another technology called SRT that is much better suited to streaming real-time video feeds over the internet. We also considered using Dolby IO's live streaming capabilities. We ran out of time implementing that solution. And full disclosure, we've done events for Dolby in the past, and we use their technology for a lot of our events, but we just ran out of time getting that solution going, and I think I would use it next time. I do like their live streaming solutions. But SRT with Collaba Cloud worked beautiful. It was smooth. It was seamless. We were able to bring it into open broadcaster software, and everything just worked. It was fantastic. Another thing is, I wish, you may have noticed that I've been using Google Earth quite a bit here. And what I found with this is I've got on Google Earth Pro, you can actually do measurements. You can lay down custom markers. I wish I would have used this earlier in the process, because this has been handy for measuring out some approximate placements for some of our equipment. I really wish I would have used this earlier. And I didn't think about it at the time, but it makes total sense now, is I wish I would have tried lining up some of my shots and experimenting with camera placement using Google Maps and Google Street View. I wish I would have done that in the beginning, because just doing this after the fact has been fantastic. And then I think with Google Earth, you can share these, view in Google Map, Earth, view in Google Maps, and you can email the view over to people as well. So, I wish we would have done a little bit more of Google Earth during the planning phase. I found that, again, NDI is fantastic for your local broadcast, SRT for bringing in remote sources. And maybe another time I'll go into a little behind the scenes on how we did the titles and how we did OBS, because that'd be worth a stream unto itself. Another thing to keep in mind too is 100 feet of cable, 300 feet of cable, 500 feet of cable. It sounds like a lot until you actually run it. And when we ran our 300 feet of cable from the main event area over to the finish line, it was, we did have a bit of an oh crap moment where we started running out of cable. Like legit started running out of cable. I think we have 800, 900 feet worth of Ethernet cable in our inventory, and we used almost all of it to pull this event off. And we even cut down on some of the cameras that we were using. So that's how much, that's how much cable we were using. So yeah, there was a lot going on. So that's just a couple of lessons that we learned, and a little bit of a walkthrough of what we did for the Canada Life Forest City road races. So again, key takeaways: know how your stuff is going to break, know what the limits of your internet connection are, and be ready to compensate for that. I wish I would have taken advantage of Google Earth a bit earlier. It has some awesome capabilities. By the way, if you got questions, pop them in the chat. More than happy to answer some. Your cable is going to run out fast. So 100 feet of cable sounds like a lot. It's not. It's going to run out a lot faster than you think. So always have extras. Ethernet extenders are awesome for that. I loved using NDI for my local broadcast, and SRT for bringing in the remote broadcast was awesome. I'll talk about some of the challenges we had with the OBS side of things and with the titling side of things another time. I'll do a dive into H2R graphics. By the way, H2R was phenomenal. If you're looking for a way to add titles to a live stream, I would go with H2R. It was fantastic. So that's a little behind the scenes on how we produced the Forest City road races. A lot of running Ethernet cables, a lot of flying it in the air using turnbuckles and wire. So that's, I hope that gives you a little insight into what goes on in planning a, somewhat larger event outdoors and live streaming it to the internet. Also, have a lot of plan Bs and plan Cs for the weather. Wind is a thing, rain is a thing, and you need to be able to compensate for both. Anchor everything down as much as you can. You want a nice mix of big, heavy things. We were using heavy base plates on our trusses along with cinder blocks. You want sandbags on your tripods. You want to anchor stuff as much as you can. And get up nice and high for your camera angles. Especially if there's going to be people around, the height is going to make all the difference, and that way people won't be getting so much in the way of your shots. So that's all I've got for today. So hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found it insightful. Thank you for watching, and I'll chat with you another time. Take care. Have a great day.